All right. Hello there. Thanks for joining us today, Word and Brown Brokers. We're excited to have you here to dive into all things Ease and Employee Navigator. We know since Ease announced the acquisition, or since Employee Navigator announced the acquisition of Ease a few years ago, we've all been waiting patiently for that sunset date and when we would need to migrate those groups over to Employee Navigator. And the time is now, the time is coming. And we're going to walk you through some of our lessons learned and things that we think that you would like to hear and the questions we've been hearing in the marketplace to try to address the things we think are most important to you. So I want to welcome Amanda. She will be joining me today to present and share with you the things we have learned on Employee Navigator. My name is Emily Crognelli. I am our SVP of Client Experience. I have oversight over account management, which includes our tech team, as well as broker resources, which is all our amazing website resources, and our underwriting team. Amanda is our Director of Client Technology Solutions. She is our subject matter expert on all things Ease and Employee Navigator. She's been working closely with our team lead, Nicole Edgar, and our tech team to really understand all things Employee Navigator so that we would be prepared for this transition and can also prepare you and share all the things that we've learned. Okay, so we are going to start with just a few housekeeping items. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A feature in Zoom. We are going to try to get through as many questions as we can. As I mentioned throughout this presentation, we are prepared to share a lot of the questions we've already heard from you all or heard from the market about the transition. But if you have questions we haven't answered, please drop them in that Q&A. At the end, we'll look through to see if there's anything we can answer. And if we're not able to answer on this webinar, we will follow up with you after this with a phone call or email to discuss your questions. Also, this webinar will be recorded. We plan to post it in our newsroom. So if you want to come back and listen to anything, or if there was anyone on your team that wasn't able to attend, just know you will be able to share that recording with them, and it's going to be accessible to all of you through our newsroom. So I just talked about our newsroom. This is going to be a great resource for you on all things Employee Navigator. We actually just revamped this to have a full section fully on the Employee Navigator transitions. So this should be your go-to stop anytime you're looking for information on how Word and Brown can support you. These dates we're going to talk about, training opportunities, webinars that are being announced from Employee Navigator, and also our own internal webinars that will be posted here, as I mentioned on the last slide, and also any upcoming webinars we'll have. So obviously, we'll be sending out emails and updates, but this newsroom is going to be a great go-to spot that's available on our website when there's a time that you need to access any info on Employee Navigator. So as I mentioned, our plan is to go through some of the frequently asked questions we have heard from you all. But again, if there's anything we haven't answered, please drop that in the Q&A. All right, Amanda, what's our first question?
So Emily, this has been a big question, the question for a couple years now. When is Ease sunsetting?
All right, so Employee Navigator officially gave us the dates. I know there's been a lot of dates that have been shared over the course of the last 2 years, but we do have that date officially now. So Ease is no longer selling new accounts. So if you are a broker that doesn't have an existing account with Ease, you are no longer able to purchase an Ease account. They would be setting you up with an Employee Navigator account. That's already happening. Now, if you already have an existing Ease account, you can continue to put new groups on that Ease account until 1/1/2027. That is a date on the calendar. It is not a renewal date or an effective date of a policy. That is the actual date on the calendar. So as of 1/1/2027, that add group button will be disabled in Ease. So this means new groups that haven't been on Ease before will no longer be able to be added. You'll still be able to renew any existing groups, but those are our new groups. Now, what about your renewal groups? You'll have until 7/1/2027 to keep any existing groups on your Ease account. As of 7/1/2027, again, a date on the calendar, not a renewal or effective date. As of 7/1/2027, no new changes will be able to be processed in Ease. So you won't be able to add new rates or benefits. Employees will no longer be able to make changes. It'll be read only. Brokers and HR users will still have access to Ease to be able to pull things historically, but changes will no longer be able to be made going forward. Now, our recommendation is that no renewals should be processed in ease as of 5/1. We want to give your groups enough time to fully wrap up their OE, get everything done that they need to within the ease system. And we feel like 6/1 effective dates and definitely 7/1 renewals will be putting you very close. So our recommendation is if you have a group that wants to continue to renew in ease next year, that you cut that off at 5/1. And any of your 6/1 and 7/1 renewals, you embrace Employee Navigator. All right, moving on to the next one. Amanda, what do we got?
So this is a question we get all the time, and it's even a question that we got in the RSV questionnaire as well. So how do our partners get an Employee Navigator account, and what is the cost?
Okay, so if you are an existing license holder of an ease account, you can get access to Employee Navigator for no charge. They've had this opened up for a year or so, where any existing ease users can get access to a no charge Employee Navigator account. This is something we highly recommend. If you haven't been an Employee Navigator yet, we suggest you reach out to ease and get that no charge account set up with Employee Navigator and start looking at the system, working in the system, getting used to it. Employee Navigator will be reaching out to those existing ease users to eventually transition all ease contracting and payments over to Employee Navigator. I think they expect to do that through the next few months and as we get into the end of the year, but they'll be reaching out to you directly about your contracting. Now, if you don't have an existing ease account and you want to get set up with a brand new Employee Navigator account, you would reach out to Employee Navigator directly. They have information on their website. They'll be able to talk through your needs and what account makes the most sense for you, and also share pricing and just what that whole contracting process looks like. They will have an entry-level Employee Navigator account that starts at $300 a month. There will be some restrictions on how many broker users can access it and also group counts. So that's why they're going to be the best resource to walk you through exactly what that pricing and process looks like. All right. What do we got next, Amanda?
So now that we have the details, what support does Ward & Brown offer an Employee Navigator?
Okay, so Amanda, Nicole, our tech team has been working hard to develop our SOPs, standard operating procedures, over the course of the last year, and really being prepared to support you and your groups in Employee Navigator. We can support all builds and QAs, whether it's new groups, renewals, or migrations within your own Employee Navigator system. So once you have that Employee Navigator system set up, you can give us access and we can go in there and do the work for you when it comes to builds and QAs. We can also help with support tickets. We know this is a new system and there's going to be a lot of questions. We're going to share some of the self-service resources that Employee Navigator have that can help you with those support tickets. But no, you can also always reach out to your Ward & Brown team and we'll help you with that as well. We do want to just share that we've seen 3 to 4 times as many support tickets coming in for Employee Navigator builds compared to ease. This isn't a surprise. We know it's new. When we were all getting stood up in ease, there was a lot of questions that came in it as well. And we know it takes time for us all to get used to a new system. So I just want to make you aware we are seeing a high volume of support tickets, and we'll get to all of those as quickly as possible for you. We recognize this is a new system and there's going to be more questions, and we'll learn together and definitely educate you along the way. We also are so close to launching our Employee Navigator library. I know based on broker feedback, we created our ease library, and that's been a very valuable resource for our team as well as our broker partners building within ease. Within Employee Navigator, you do have access to the IDEON library that you can use. This is the library provided by Employee Navigator. The IDEON library includes rates and benefits, but it doesn't include those links to SBCs, provider search, or maybe some of the enrollment materials you're used to seeing in the ease library. So just know we are closer than ever to getting our GA library launched within Employee Navigator, and we know that'll be a very valuable resource for us as well as your teams as you build an Employee Navigator. Just as a reminder, the library helps to support our small group major medical carriers. So you'll get access to Ward & Brown's rates and benefits, the same rates and benefits that are in our quoting tool, but we also enhance it and include links to SBCs, provider search, and again, some of those enrollment flyers and materials that you like to have in the system. We also will continue to provide resources and updates like this to you. We are committed to walk through this transition together. I mentioned that newsroom, and we'll talk through some of our other resources as we go through this presentation, but just know that we'll continue to support you in those ways as well. All right, Amanda, I got one for you now. So how does the migration, or when should I migrate my groups? We're going to talk through a bunch of migration questions, but let's start with when should I actually migrate my groups?
So the migration tool has been a hot topic for a while, and it's really come a long way. Employee Navigator suggests a 2x2 approach, migrating either 2 months before or 2 months after the group's renewal. Because this is a significant change for both you and your clients, Word& Brown recommends a more conservative timeline. At least 3 months before open enrollment, which is preferred, or 2 months after open enrollment. This extended timeline allows for a smoother migration process, proper system testing and validation, HR training on Employee Navigator. It's a new site for them too, and just an overall adjustment period before managing open enrollment in a brand new system.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, been a lesson learned we've taken away is having that additional time just to get everyone used to the new system. All right, another migration question. We've heard a lot about this migration tool. How does this tool work? And what have you learned by using the migration tool?
So one of the things that we've learned is it's extremely important to start by reviewing your Employee Navigator migration dashboard in ease and identifying the groups that are ready to migrate. Making sure that you resolve errors and warnings. I mean, if there's errors, you won't even be able to migrate it, but warnings, you definitely want to clean it up, minimize those warnings before you push it over to ensure a clean and accurate migration. When ease is deemed a group ready for migration, you can just click that Migrate Now button, and then you'll be prompted to log into your Employee Navigator account. So it is important that you do have your own Employee Navigator account so that when you do click Migrate, it has somewhere to go. The migration tool works by transmitting the majority of the data in ease into Employee Navigator, namely the company profile, plans, which is a lot of it, right? Plans, census data, and current enrollments. But a few important considerations. Once the migration begins, the group will become read-only in ease. So it'll essentially be disabled in ease. This may sound scary and abrupt, but you don't want your clients operating in two systems of record. You don't want them trying to, make updates and changes in ease when all of the data has already been moved over to Employee Navigator, and now Employee Navigator would be, out of date. Another thing is connections will also be disabled and they will need to be reestablished in Employee Navigator. Employee Navigator is working on a solution in order to have, those connections migrate over with the group. But in the meantime, they will need to be manually reconnected post-migration. Another thing to consider is that not everything migrates. To confirm which specific data migrates, you can ask Employee Navigator's AI assistant, my favorite tool, or check the Employee Navigator migration dashboard article in the Ease Support Center, and that'll let you know what data is migrating, what's not. You can also check the readiness report, and there's also a report that will generate after you've migrated the group to let you know what migrated and if there's anything that you might need to manually build and fix up in Employee Navigator on the back end. New logins will need to be sent from Employee Navigator. So again, a new system, you'll need to invite HR and the employees into Employee Navigator so they'll get new logins and new ways to log into their new system. Now, if Word & Brown had an Ease account or an Ease support partner access to your groups, we will lose access once you have migrated the company. You will retain read-only access in your Ease account, but you will need to give Word & Brown a partner invitation to re-grant us access in Employee Navigator. So just a little note, if you're asking for our help on something, just know that once you migrate that group, we'll likely lose access to it and you'll need to re-grant us access so we can help support that.
All right, you ready for the next question, Amanda? All right, this is going to be migration too. So we just talked through how the tool works. How are we recommending using that tool and what are our other options?
Well, the good news is you have flexible options depending on your group's needs. So we just talked a lot about the migration tool. That is option one, the migration tool. The migration tool may be the quickest way to transition most of the information from ease in a click of a button, maybe a couple clicks of a button. But again, it does not migrate all information. And since the systems are not apples to apples identical, but a little more apples to oranges, so similar but not identical, it will require review and Employee Navigator and a little bit of cleanup. So there might be some filling in the blanks, just making sure that everything migrated as expected. The systems, again, are not apples to apples. So there's not always an exact way, place for it to move from ease to Employee Navigator. So there might be a little bit of cleanup on the back end. But I do love this option as a time saver. And as we get closer to, that sunset date, time is of the essence. And the other thing I love about this is that it ensures that there is only one system of record. So again, once you click the migrate button, the ease will become read only. And so really they'll only be able to operate in one system, which helps with data. Now, I know migration tool, you do have options. Option two is rebuilding a group from scratch. So this option allows for more control, customization, and flexible timelines. This is ideal for more complex groups with multiple eligibility rules. So if in ease you had a ton of different classes and different contribution scenarios and rate structures and everything, rebuilding from scratch might be the best way to do it. But rebuilding from scratch does take more time. Rather than pushing all of those plans in and they're virtually all built via the migration tool, rebuilding, you're going to be rebuilding those plans one by one from scratch. But again, that allows for a little bit more control. Now, because that might take a little bit more time and you're thinking, hey, I don't think my clients have enough, have the time to wait on a blackout period of a couple weeks or a week, there is a hybrid approach. To minimize disruption and blackout periods for your groups, plans can be built in advance because the plans aren't going to change, allowing the group to operate in ease as normal while you build on the back end. Then, when you're ready to transition the group, you've had conversations with them, you've maybe provided a little bit of preliminary training to them, you're ready to hit the button really. You can then disable them in ease, pull that Employee Navigator enrollment export census, and then import it into Employee Navigator, and then go ahead and launch their logins for Employee Navigator to get them into the new system. So that's a little bit of a time saver, at least for the group. Now, in all cases, timing, planning, and communication is key for a smooth transition. Do we have any more for me?
Yeah, I got another question. All right, so I feel like this is a question we got asked a lot, and it's a biggie. So I know we're going to hit on some of the topics today, but what are the differences that a broker should be aware of between Ease and Employee Navigator?
Well, that's a loaded question, and I don't know if we have time for all of the differences. But really, the platforms are similar in purpose and functionality, but they differ a little bit in structure. Again, think apples to oranges. They're still fruit, right? But they're not identical. Here are some of the key differences. Terminology and navigation. The most immediate differences you might notice are the verbiage and the navigation. For example, in Ease, there's a to-do list. In Employee Navigator, it's called the wall. Same purpose, similar functionality, different names, a little bit more customization on the wall. So there's a couple different things that you'll notice right away. Even noticing that things are just slightly in a different place. You might have to click on, 3 different things to get to one thing where it was in a different place in Ease. So just kind of learning how to navigate where it is. Another thing is access. Word and Brown can still be granted GA support access via support partner invitations on a group by group basis. However, our access is limited. And due to differences in pricing structure, our access will be revoked 45 days after we have completed build support. Now, if you do need support after our access has been revoked, you can simply resend a partner invitation to re-grant us access. Now, users and Employee Navigator support. This one's kind of a big difference. Users and Employee Navigator account are categorized as either standard or premier. Typically, Employee Navigator accounts have only one premier user unless more are purchased. These premier users are the only users that can email and call Employee Navigator for support. This does allow for Employee Navigator to keep their response times quick and their call wait times low. Now, build process. The build process in Employee Navigator is more detailed and customizable, but often does take longer. There are definitely some shortcuts, one being the default eligibility rules, where you can build in waiting periods and termination settings to apply to multiple plans at once. That's a great thing. You can also build in their dynamic classes, which is a little bit different than ease as well. But there are a lot more. There may be more fields to configure because, again, it's a lot more customizable. And you do need to click save in every page, which is different from ease, where everything auto-saved as you went along. So little differences like that. Now, census and data requirements. Employee Navigator requires social security numbers when importing census templates. I'll say that again, because this is a big one that I think we've had a lot of adjustment to, is that Employee Navigator requires social. Ease had the employee ID, or what we called the EID, that tied family units together or identified a unique employee, which allowed you to make updates to that one employee. Employee Navigator uses social to do that. And we highly recommend not using fake social security numbers, of course, for data integrity. There are also multiple import templates, and each census must be imported separately based on the information that you are importing. So if you're importing employees, that's one thing. Importing employee independence. Importing medical enrollments is a different census and a different process than it is for importing life or disability enrollments. However, a very cool feature that they do have, that Employee Navigator has, is the ability to map fields when you are importing a census. So that's something a little different. It's all an adjustment. Now, forms. The ability to produce signed carrier enrollment forms in Employee Navigator is limited mainly to medical, dental, and vision, with a few life and disability exceptions. This was a large shift from ease from the beginning, but Employee Navigator's focus and goal has been on building and connecting integrations with carriers, TPAs, and payroll vendors, rather than the manual effort of downloading forms, submitting to carriers, or manually keying into enrollment or into carrier portals. An Employee Navigator has a large menu of vendor connections to offset the limited forms, and they continue to heavily invest in the future of connections as well. Now, open enrollment differences. This one's been a big one for me. Open enrollment is a whole event, and timing is everything. Employee Navigator does a whole week-long training on just open enrollment. The admin date is critical, or admin end date is critical. It's definitely a new term for us ease users, but it determines a lot in Employee Navigator. It determines when open enrollment is officially closed, when passive enrollments apply, when open enrollment elections will appear on the enrollment census. If a group has connections, it also controls when those elections will feed over to the carrier. So just definitely, if you have the time to attend those open enrollment trainings from Employee Navigator, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot. It's a lot different than it was in Ease. Overall, Employee Navigator is new for many of us. Therefore, questions and support needs will increase initially. We've already seen them increase initially, but Word and Brown is committed to timely support and guidance. All right. I
All
think I
right.
might
Thanks,
have some for
Amanda. I
you
think you've got
next.
one for me next.
Okay. Our partners have heard how we can support them, but what training is available to them?
I mentioned that newsroom earlier. This is going to be your go-to resource to learn about all the amazing support and training resources that are available. Amanda mentioned that Employee Navigator AI support. That little chat feature has been a game changer. I think our team all uses it daily. Um, you can ask it a question and it'll come up with an answer. So if you have a question about a connection or a form, it can provide the answer for you. If you're trying to figure out how to do something in Employee Navigator, it'll answer how to do it. An example recently was how to pull payroll deductions. You ask it that question, comes up with the answer immediately. And I know that information is available in other spots on the website, but being able to just ask the AI chat is very helpful. I know when talking to Employee Navigator, if there's a question that isn't answered thoroughly or there's feedback that the AI couldn't respond to it, they were looking at those daily and continuing to build into the AI chat feature. So just know that is our go-to resource and would always be our recommendation for a first stop if you're confused on how to find something or getting more information on a certain carrier or connection or form. That AI support will be able to help you. Talking about the other support resources available, they have a whole support center. Again, the AI can answer a lot of those questions that are also answered in the support center, but know that you can also go there and reference different topics and find support articles on that. They also have self-paced training. So I feel like we've gotten a lot of how do I even start learning Employee Navigator? And we would recommend that self-paced training as a first stop. This is the training they're recommending everyone do before you actually attend an Employee Navigator training session. It's kind of giving you the rundown of all the things you need to know, and then you launch into some of their other training resources or videos. Employee Navigator has been doing webinars and trainings nonstop, some in person, some virtual. We have all of those webinars and trainings and the dates and how to register posted in our newsroom. So if you're interested in attending any of those, please check out our newsroom. We'll keep it updated with the most recent dates and opportunities that are available. We've also curated our own list of recommended training that links you to Employee Navigator resources on certain topics. We have this for both broker users and HR users. So again, that's a great resource to look at yourself, but then also share with any admin that are looking to get more used to the Ease system or train themselves on the Ease system. So just know we'll continue to keep these resources updated. What we've really learned along the way is you just got to jump in without knowing everything. Build a test group, build an easy group, put a new group that's just starting on Employee Navigator so that you can see how the process works. These training resources are all a first step if you just want to learn more about Employee Navigator. But again, how you're really going to learn is just being in the system and coming up with those scenarios for the first time. That's how our team has really embraced and learned this new system, and being gracious with yourself along the way, just knowing that it is new. But the good thing is Employee Navigator has launched a lot of great resources with this AI support. They've launched a lot of enhancements. So there's more parity within Ease and Employee Navigator. So it is a similar experience for you. All right, Amanda, I think we got another one.
Yes. And this is actually one that we got in our Q&A, so this works out perfect. Can you tell us a little about Word and Brown's hosted account access?
All right. So in Ease, we had access to our Ease Try Before You Buy account, where brokers could utilize our Ease account until you figured out if you wanted to purchase or invest in your own Ease system. We are continuing to navigate what this will look like in Employee Navigator. Employee Navigator has what they call a hosted account where we can host you within our GA account. We will have more information that continues to come out on this. Our goal is to have a plan for you all by 12/1/2026. And the goal and intention of this will be to be used as an onboarding tool that you can use Employee Navigator hosted account to onboard your groups and allow you to make a decision if you want to invest into your own Employee Navigator account or if you'd be interested in shifting the group back to paper. So our plan is to have an onboarding tool solution for you. Now, for brokers that are already in our Ease Try Before You Buy, just know we have more information that will be coming out to you on those transition dates and recommendations and coming up with a strategy and timeline. That information will be coming from your sales team as well as myself, and we'll be walking you through each step of the way. But in the meantime, if you have a group that needs to be put on our Ease Try Before You Buy, we will continue to do that through 12/1. And again, we'll have an onboarding solution that'll be available for you once Ease is sunset. Any groups that are on our hosted Try Before You Buy account can continue to renew until that full Ease sunset date. So just know that we will be communicating out to those impacted brokers and come up with a strategy for you and your groups. All right. What do I got next, Amanda?
So, Emily, we've covered a lot of great information today. And as we navigate this transition together, where can our partners go to stay up to date on Employee Navigator support?
So I shared we just launched our newsroom earlier this month, and this is going to be a great go-to resource. Again, we have information there with an overview of our support, how we build new groups, migrated groups, and any renewal groups in Employee Navigator and what's needed. We have a link to our intake form. Anyone that's worked with us in Ease is very familiar with our intake form. We have a new intake form for Employee Navigator. Amanda mentioned that Employee Navigator asks for a lot more information, so we needed to capture that on the intake form. We also have that updated first page of the intake form, which walks you through everything we need. It has the reminders of Social Security number being needed on the census, and just it's a good guide for making sure that when you send a request over to Ward & Brown, we're getting everything we need. That newsroom will also have the most recent updates on our hosted account access. It'll be updated with any of those webinars or trainings that are coming from Employee Navigator and also our own webinars. I mentioned this webinar that's being recorded will be posted there. So again, that's a first go-to stop that I would definitely recommend for getting information. As always, you can reach out to your sales team. They can strategize with you, discuss with you transitions. Amanda and I can be involved in those conversations as well. But our goal and intention is really to be with you with each step of the way as we work through this transition together. Amanda, did we get any questions in the chat? I haven't been able to take a look yet, but is there any that we can discuss or should discuss?
We got one that actually piqued my interest, especially after I just went over some of the differences between Ease and Employee Navigator. And the question was just, how close of a fit is Employee Navigator from Ease? What are the most glaring functionalities and features that are still missing? Really, at the beginning, I think there were a lot of things that were still missing from Employee Navigator. And as Ease lovers, some of us are like, wanting it to be the same. But really, Employee Navigator has a lot of functionality and customization. So a lot more than Ease did. And they've really done a lot in the past couple years to take a lot of features from Ease and really make those feature parodies in Employee Navigator. So I'm really hopeful. I don't see too many things that are, let's say, missing. It's more of just an adjustment and kind of learning the new landscape and getting used to just, how things are done in Employee Navigator versus Ease, but not to say that something's missing per se. But very hopeful still. And they continue to progress and, make enhancements as well.
I know we've been very encouraged with how Employee Navigator has heard feedback, especially over the last year and a half, and how we've seen those Ease parody items, especially those items we requested here in California, being launched in Employee Navigator. So that's a kudos to Amanda and team that spent a lot of time giving Employee Navigator feedback. And I know all of you have been vocal with Employee Navigator as well with your needs. So thank you for that. I think we've seen them really take that feedback and put it into action and where we're at today with Employee Navigator.
Let's see. Another one is, and this might be just a very high level answer, but has Ward & Brown explored other enrollment platforms?
We continue to look at any and every enrollment platform. There's a lot out there. And many of them had the same challenge as Employee Navigator, where they weren't quite ready for the California market and some of the unique carriers we have, like CowChoice, the needs for forms. And I know CowChoice just launched their enrollment and renewal census. So that eliminates some of the need for forms, but we do know there are still times where we need to be able to produce forms. So in looking at other systems, that was definitely a limitation. Some were just not set up to really work in our small group market here in California. We know in other markets, maybe a group offers one HMO and one PPO, but we know here we have all these different HMO networks and limited networks and trying to get all those eligibilities in the system correctly. So we will continue to explore options. This will not stop. We know this continues to be a need, and we will keep you updated on any of our findings and anything we're prepared to share with the market.
Do we have time for two more?
Yeah.
Okay. This question came in regarding the migrations, a little more in the weeds, just about what the most common issues we're seeing when it comes to migrating groups. One of the things that I've seen is the voluntary dental and voluntary vision really, they're just not considered the same, or they're not looked at the same way. So if you have a voluntary vision or voluntary dental plan in ease, and that's the only dental or vision plan you're offering, that is not going to be the same as it is an Employee Navigator. Employee Navigator's voluntary dental and vision plans are really looked as supplemental, and that could also interfere with you connecting any of those plans to, let's say a carrier connection. So that's kind of one that doesn't quite, again, that's a apples to oranges thing where you might even just want to skip that and manually build it in Employee Navigator. Another one is FSA limited purpose. So there's not an FSA limited purpose in ease, at least the plan type, but there is one in Employee Navigator. So again, that's one that you may even want to skip on the migration and then manually rebuild it in Employee Navigator. But those are kind of some of the main ones. Again, just making sure that you're looking at the group before you migrate it, making sure it's clean. I've seen some kind of funky things in the eligibilities where the classes are a little funky. And then if they're funky in ease, they're going to migrate funky into Employee Navigator. Funky is a technical term that I use, by the way. But those are some of the main things. We do have some documentation on some of these, and we continue to document all of our lessons learned as well, right? That's, and share our lessons learned. So if you do have lessons learned, please feel free to share with us as well.
I think one of the biggest things, which I know you already mentioned, but is that when you hit the migrate button, the group is moved to read only and ease. And I know we already said this, but I just want to say it again. When you hit the migrate button, it's going to change to read only. So if your groups and you aren't ready for that group to be shut off on ease, just know that migrate button does do that. So potentially while you go through some of these updates or you work with Word and Brown to get the system ready and Employee Navigator, once you hit the migrate button, your groups will have a blackout period. So as long as they're aware of that and ready to fully get into Employee Navigator, that might not be an issue. But again, Amanda mentioned just communication and transparency, just so everyone knows what's going to happen. We've had a few brokers reach out that didn't realize once they hit migrate that the group was going to be shut off in ease. So you just want to make sure you're ready before you hit that button.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. I think one of the other questions Tony Marie is answering. But I think that's pretty much I think everything else we can probably respond to in the Q&A.
All right, perfect. So if we didn't get to your question or if there's something we didn't answer, please drop it in the Q&A. We'll respond back to you directly, send you an email, give you a call later this week. We are here for you through this transition. We understand this is a big change. We've been in ease now and have gotten really comfortable in that system. So we just want to acknowledge that this is a change for us. It's a change for you. It's a change for your groups, for their employees, for the market, especially here in California. I know we were all very heavy ease users. So moving to a new platform is always difficult. You're learning the new clicks. You're learning the new systems. we've gone through a lot of those lessons learned. And as we mentioned, Employee Navigator has made a lot of enhancements. So we feel like the system's in a really good spot for you all to get in there and start working and managing your groups with an Employee Navigator. The Word and Brown team is here to help you. Our tech team is ready to go to help with those builds, to help with those support tickets. And as I've thought about this transition, it reminds me of ACA. And when we went through the grandmother and grandfathering plans, and we were looking at if they should grandmother grandfather or if we should move them to ACA and when we should do that. And we were quoting, all the different scenarios, all the different options. And after we got through that transition, it just became the new norm. And that's how we do business today with the ACA plans, right? But there was this moment in time where we were working with pre-ACA and ACA plans. So we're in a moment in time right now. We are working within E as an Employee Navigator. And that's a lot for us all to navigate and work through. We're all trying to decide when do we move these groups from Ease to Employee Navigator? How do I do that? Where will I get help? Just know that we will continue to be your trusted partner through this transition. We've been there before, we're there now, and we'll be there in the future. And we'll get through these transitions together. So very much appreciate your time today. If we didn't get to your question, please drop it in the chat or send your sales team an email and we will respond back. We will continue to have these webinars for you as we work to that migration date. So just know that you'll continue to hear updates from us, and we'll continue to enhance these presentations as we learn more and as we hear questions from you all. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day, all. Enjoy your summer.